Yo, what's up? It's easy. This is an introduction to the basics of Fire Mage and what you really need to know to get started. But since you're not here to look at my ugly mug, let's not waste any time, shall we? Races. For Horde, Troll is the best race. Berserking adds more GCDs into the combustion window, allowing for higher burst potential. On a 3-minute cooldown, it is worth saving every second berserking to line up with combustion. For Alliance, Dwarf is the best race. 2% increased crit damage is obviously quite a boost when a spec is designed around critical striking. This graphic shows a comparison of all races using a base tier 19 profile. These numbers will vary depending on the legendaries and the gear you have. For example, if you get multiple legendary Bracer procs and Whispers procs during combustion, the extra haste from the Troll ratio is going to be far more beneficial than the damage from Undead. For Mythic Plus content, Blood Elf is by far the best, as the AoE silence is ridiculously strong, but has no real use in raiding. If you're not picking Troll and Dwarf to min-max, then it doesn't really matter which race you go, just pick the one you think looks the best. Artifact Path. The order you want to get your base artifact traits are Phoenix Flames, Wings of Flame, Cauterizing Blink, Pyroclasmic Paranoia, Fire at Will, Pyretic Incantation, Great Balls of Fire, Big Mouth, Ever Burning Consumption, Phoenix Reborn, Burning Gaze, Reignition Overdrive, Blast Furnace, Aftershocks, Blue Flame Special, Scorched Earth, Molten Skin, Empowered Spellblade. Once you have completed all of your artifacts, you will unlock the new traits which were introduced in 7.2. The order you want to get these in are Instability of the Tiras God, Fire at Will, Pre-Ignited, Pyroclasmic Paranoia, Burning Gaze, Warmth of the Phoenix, Strafing Run, Ever Burning Consumption, Reignition Overdrive, Great Balls of Fire, Blue Flame Special, Cauterizing Blink, Molten Skin, and finally Concordance of the Legion Fall. Relics. This list is based off single target fights. Fireball cast time reduction relics are best if you are not using either the legendary bracers or the legendary belt. However, they fall behind pyro damage relics if you have either one of them. Crit damage comes in 3rd, while ignite damage in 4th. Fire blast damage in 5th, while fireball damage last on the DPS relics. If you get any of these relics at 5 item levels or higher, then you can replace your current relics and see a DPS gain. Cauterizing Blink, Flamestrike damage, and Molten Armor relics require a 10 item level upgrade over your previous relics to be worthwhile replacing. AoE fights increase the value of ignite damage, crit damage, and Flamestrike damage by a huge margin, but it is generally not worth picking relics for AoE situations, since there is more single target fights than there are consistent AoE fights. If you are only doing Mythic Plus content, then these relics may be the ones you wish to go for, however you will be sacrificing lots of boss damage. Talents. Pyromaniac gives you a small chance to reactivate Hot Streak when using a Hot Streak. Very RNG and also very easy to munch procs. More interactive but not really worth the extra effort required. Conflagration, an extra small dot applied when you fireball a target. Conflag and Ignite also have a chance to flare up, dealing 45% spell damage to all nearby enemies. Very good in AoE situations like Mythic Plus, and also not needed to be managed like Pyromaniac. Firestarter. When your target is above 90% health, your Fireball and Pyroblast will always critically strike. The main reason you take this talent is so that you can fish for legendary Bracer procs and then open your combustion rotation with a hardcast Pyroblast, which is extremely strong. Doesn't work if you're using Rune of Power, however. Shimmer. Being able to position while casting is extremely powerful, the only choice in this tier worth considering. Mirror Images. Used in most single target situations. Each mirror casts Fireball and is affected by all of the host's stats aside from Mastery, since they do not contribute to Ignite. Haste stacking makes them very strong, as they can get more casts off during their 30-second uptime. One reason why you may see haste jumping up in your sims. Rune of Power, used in AoE situations or when you need to burst at a specific time. Since the rune is placed on the floor, you are locked to a certain position of the room for the duration, however the graphic is a lot smaller than the actual radius of the zone itself. Incanter's Flow, used when you need constant AoE damage throughout an entire fight. Very rarely does Fire need to use Incanters, since our damage is mainly based around burst windows, and therefore Rune of Power generally does the job better. Alexstrasza's Fury. Very good if you have the Legendary Helm and there are burst AoE opportunities. Not really used in single target even if you do have the Legendary Helm. Flame On, the standard talent for 90% of encounters. An extra charge and cooldown reduction on Fire Blast means more potential opportunities to convert heating up procs into hot streaks. The Fire Mage bread and butter. Controlled Burn, 20% chance to convert heating up instantly into hot streak. Similar to Pyromaniac, the RNG element can be more of a hindrance than anything else. Never used in any situation. Frenetic Speed. While scorching, gain a burst of movement speed. Great extra mobility and the only talent which directly benefits us in this row. Ring of Frost and Ice Ward may have some niches, but they are few and far between. Living Bomb. Applies a dot to the target, which on expiry explodes for AoE damage and adds the same dot to everything around it, which also explodes. This damage increases exponentially the more targets are in close proximity of the original bomb target. Unstable Magic. Fireball sometimes does more damage. Incredibly boring talent, but the best in the row if there are no AoE in the entire fight. Flame Patch. Leaves a patch of fire on the floor at your Flame Strike location. Multiple flame patches stack and the AoE can very quickly become absurdly high. However, if the mob moves out of the patch, all damage is lost. Mostly used in Mythic Plus when you do not need to focus a priority target and the packs are not very big, say 3 to 4 mobs. Kindling. Every time Fireball, Fire Blast or Pyro crit, combustion CD is reduced by 1 second. Kindling is only really favoured when you cannot use the full benefit of either Meteor or Cinderstorm, or you are aiming for specific burst windows inside of 2 minutes. Since the combustion nerf, it is rare to see this talent used. Cinderstorm. Fire 6 cinders in an arc towards your target. One of the few spells which you have to directly aim with your character. Excellent in AoE situations due to the cinders passing through all mobs in its path, however much harder to use than the other two. Meteor. The most standard single target option and the most used in this row. Drop a hard-hitting fireball of molten rock onto someone's head for huge initial damage, and a flame patch-esque floor dot. Very simple to use. There are 2 main talent builds, single target and AoE. The single target build consists of mirror images and meteor, while the AoE build uses Ring of Power and Cinderstorm. Mirror images only attack one target, and meteor spreads the damage equally over all targets hit. Obviously it makes these talents only suitable for single target encounters. Rune of Power increases all damage we deal by 40%. Outweighs mirror images as soon as there is more than one target. Cinderstorm can cleave through all targets in its path, and can be insane damage on multiple mobs. For a more detailed explanation on talents, check out the Advanced Rotations video. Stats. There are 5 main stats the Fire Mage gets to work with. Intellect, Critical Strike, Haste, Versatility, and Mastery. Intellect is our primary stat, and very rarely is valued higher than any other stat. The most recent change to secondary stats made eye level much more important, and therefore it would be rare not to equip an item of higher item level. The higher the item level, the more intellect the item would have, excluding rings and neck pieces. Critical strike chance is what the entire spec is based off. Not only does crit make our spells do more damage, but enables hot streaks, which let us fire off our hardest hitting abilities. Haste lets us cast faster and also affects the cast speed of mirror images. Also affects the cooldowns of certain abilities like Fire Blast and Cinderstorm. Versatility, plain and simple, increases the damage of our spells by a flat %. Our Mastery is Ignite. After casting Fireball, Fire Blast, Scorch, Pyroblast and Flame Strike, a percentage of the damage is left on the target as a dot for 9 seconds, ticking every second. The amount of Mastery we have increases that percentage. Depending on the content you are doing, your current gear, and how many points in your artifact weapon you have, your stat priority is going to change. This is why it's always important to sim your own character regularly. Here is one example of stat priorities changing based on gear. Let's assume we are using mirror images and meteor, and have 4 out of 4 in the pre-ignited trait, and are doing a single target fight. Without the set pieces, intellect first, then critical strike, haste, versatility, and lastly mastery. With the set pieces, intellect still first, but then followed by haste, critical strike, versatility, and then mastery. As you'll notice, crit becomes less valuable than haste after obtaining the set pieces. This is because every time you do not crit with Fireball, the next Fireball cast has a 30% increased crit chance instead of 10%. This means that if you have at least 40% crit, you will never cast more than 3 Fireballs in a row without the last one critting. Legendaries. Fire Mage is heavily reliant on the correct legendaries, specifically the braces. You will notice huge differences in mages with and without the braces. They are practically mandatory if you want to play the spec competitively. The same could be said for the legendary helm in certain situations, however not to the same extent as the braces. Here is the ranking order for single target. Bindings of the Sun King, Coralon's Burning Touch, Shard of the Exodar, Cephas, Kil'jaeden's Burning Wish, Bellavir, Prydaz, Pyrotech's Ignition Gloves, Darkless Dragonfire Diadem, and finally Norganon's. For AoE, Darkless Dragonfire Diadem, Kil'jaeden's Burning Wish, Coralon's Burning Touch, Pyrotech's Ignition Gloves, Shard of the Exodar, Prydaz, Bellavir, Norganon's, Cephas, and finally Bindings of the Sun King. Gems and Enchants. Intellect on Cloak, Hidden Satire on Neck, and rings and gems are depending on your stat weights. Once you've simmed your character, you can find your stat weights in a box called Scale Factors, which you can see here. So for me, I want to be gemming Critical Strike as it's the highest scaling factor in my current gear. That concludes this video on the basics of Fire Mage. Stay tuned for the next one where we will go into more detail about talent builds and the rotations which go along with them. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.